Good morning, everyone. Oh, God, I'm getting old. No, sorry, I'm just getting really sore and achy and all that shit. But I hope you're all doing well at any rate. You know what time it is, folks? It's time for another reading session. And I wonder how many strokes I'm going to have in this one, considering the toothache, which I have treated. I'll give a quick update on this, actually, before I start the book. So, basically, I've gotten some clove oil. Been trying to apply that shit. Getting a little frustrated with it because I feel like I keep getting it wrong, but it does seem to be doing its job, which is the main thing. Now, originally, my appointment with and I'm probably going to butcher the name here, the endodontic was supposed to be taking place in January the 16th, I believe, the Wednesday. Well, yesterday I received a phone call after work, and they basically said, hey, we got some good news. We're going to move you up from fucking 50 days away to this coming Monday. How's that? I'm like, yeah, great, thanks. Now I don't have to put up with this shit. Okay, I didn't slam the phone down, but hey-ho. But that does mean, at least, that instead of having to wait until mid-January for this shit to see if I can solve this issue, I only have to wait until Monday. So, I see that as an absolute win. Now, and yes, this is a Galaxy wrapper, because I lost the fucking envelope. Anyway, let's start the second chapter of Tom Robinson's book, Farmed Like Animals. And I've already mentioned the quote in the last one, so you'll have to look for that for yourself nearer the end of the video. And I will begin. In recent decades, there's been a tidal wave of references to our society becoming Orwellian, or compared directly to its most famous novel, 1984. And I've certainly made quite a few of these references. But his earlier book, Animal Farm, is arguably his most important book. Why? Because it's an insightful analysis of politics, but expressed in a manner where even small children can grasp the profound truths demonstrated in the book. It's not by accident that the novel is subtitled Orwell as a fairy story. One of Orwell's artistic principles was to use the simplest, most English parts of the language. This novel is less than 100 pages long. Considering the simplicity of the story, we believe that the profundity of this analysis may be overlooked. Many of the more unusual political ideas to be found in the book you are currently reading are exemplified in Animal Farm. Orwell's novel was written in 3 months at the end of 1943 and finally found a publisher in 1945. But not before Orwell was exasperated. Stroke number 1, we're off to a good start. Exasperated by the censorship of his manuscript in the intervening period. This censorship led Orwell to write some of his most famous principles on freedom of speech, which we will discuss later. To show the popularity of his book, we need only look at the printing history inside. I can't even read the words right now. A typical copy, reprinted in 1945, 46, 49, 1950, twice, 1951, twice, 1952, 359, 1961, 1971, 1977, 1987, and 1992. You get the picture. It's somewhat shocking that an already famous leftist writer such as Orwell should have struggled to get this fairy story published. Yet when he finally found a publisher, the book proved immediately popular and remained popular for decades to come. What this shows is that even in the 1940s, publishers in England and in Hitler's Germany would have put ideological bias ahead of profits, something that is pretty much universal in liberal democracies today. It's very likely that if you went into school in the UK, North America, or Australasia, you studied Animal Farm at school. The routine of study of Orwell's book by school students has existed in the UK since the 1950s. In 1954, less than a decade after the previously censored book was published, an animated movie was produced. Animal Farm was first taught in schools in the USA in the 1950s, and by the 1990s was seen as a standard text on high school literature courses. Children from age 11 on are likely to study Animal Farm at school in the UK in the 21st century. Currently in the UK, there are around a dozen different publishers who publish Animal Farm in some format. Just because professional publishers cannot objectively evaluate the importance of a book when they first see it, this does not mean that decades hence their bias will not their bias will not be exposed. But what the decades of schooling on Animal Farm and the popularity of this book and of Orwell's 1984 show is the power that the elite have to distract the public from the warnings even of famous books by the likes of Orwell or Aldous Huxley. Animal Farm could barely have been shorter or simpler, could hardly have been more popular and more widely taught, but still its message is mostly forgotten. Unlike my stomach, which is bloody hungry. Anyway, for those of you who don't remember the details of the book, here's an overview of the generally accepted political landmarks of the book. Following a dream by a pig named Old Major, Lenin, of a rebellion against a farmer, Mr. Jones, Tsar Nicholas II, the pig Snowball, Trotsky, assists the pig Napoleon, Stalin, in a rebellion against the farmer. So it is read as a tale about how through the 1917 revolution, Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin commandeered the Russian Empire. Eventually, Napoleon turns on the Snowball, Trotsky, who must flee for his life. But by the end of the book, the rest of the animals, the general public, can no longer tell the difference between the pigs and the farmers. Whilst Orwell's book is generally taken to be an allegory for events of the Soviet Union leading up to the time when Orwell wrote the book, there are ways in which the book can be read as a much more general analysis of the nature of political power. Orwell's 1984 is the more famous and more highly regarded of these two novels, but most of the main political points of that book are to be found in Animal Farm. But even if you are to understand this book simply as an indictment of communism, you might then ask, why, since this book has been taught to generations of school children, did Britain's so-called conservative government appoint someone the mainstream media described as a communist to the government's draconian COVID committee? I just had to look at that for a moment, which enforced unwarranted lockdowns on an entire community. It seems that our betters easily forget not only Animal Farm, but also the history of the past century. Or perhaps there's really not much difference between communists and the Conservative Party. For many years, the Trotskyist organization United Against Fascism, UAF, listed Conservative Lord David the Comment Cameron, as one of the organization's founding signatories, something confirmed in the entries of Wikipedia for UAF and for Cameron. Can you imagine a British government putting an avowed fascist or a national socialist on a draconian committee designed to control the British people? It's impossible to imagine that happening, just as it's impossible to imagine a list of dozen of right-wing bookshops. Everything is seen from the position that socialism is the norm, and the false idea that fascism is the opposite of socialism. Old Major recounts his dream of a revolution, telling his comrades that their lives are miserable, laborious, and short. Or, as Lenin says, no animal in England is free, the life of an animal is misery and slavery, that is the plain truth. Lenin Pig incites class war between humans and animals. Man is the only real enemy we have. Remove man from the scene, and the root cause of hunger and overwork is abolished forever. This revered old pig styles his movement as an irrational messianic cult, telling the animals, and I had to think if I got the word right there, because I haven't seen that word before. Anyway, work night and day for the overthrow of the human race, and above all, pass on this message of mine to those who come after you, so that future generations shall carry on the struggle until it is victorious. No argument must lead you astray. The political ideology of Lenin is to be immune to debate and reason, and it is to be used to brainwash future generations into this irrational cult. When Marx and Engels first came up with a manifesto of the Communist Party, they described it as a confession of faith. That is, the foundational catechism of a religion's belief. Again, another word I didn't see before. It's no surprise that all forms of socialism are cultish, and that when someone veers from the catechism, that they are treated as a heretic. And it is no surprise that those who spend any time in this cult, but finally reject it, turn against it with hatred for those who promote the cult. As with Islam, the followers must be in total unity, total comradeship in the struggle against their only enemy. In the case of Animal Farm, the enemy is mankind. Animals must come to see themselves as a class, while man, a human animal, must be seen as a different class. Among the animals, there are to be no distinctions or antagonisms. All animals are equal. Orwell's Leading Pig, Old Major, says that animals have... my eyes just died off somewhere. Say that animals must have ritualistic rules that distinguish them from mankind. No living in houses, no sleeping in beds, no wearing clothes, no smoking, no drinking, no alcohol, etc., etc., no touching money, nor trade with humans. No animal must be a tyrant to any other animal, nor kill an animal. The parallels with religions such as Islam are fairly clear. Permissions and prohibitions related to clothing, drink, finance, and killing. Just as Marx and Engels saw it, communism is a form of religion. A patriotic song, Beasts of England, is created to unite the animals, and very soon even the stupid of them had already picked up the tune and a few of the words to the patriotic song. The patriotic song is like a religious chant or hymn, or like a national anthem. The French national anthem, La Marseillaise, or Marseillaise, came out of the French Revolution. Those most incapable of reason could still pick up chants and ritualistic behaviour. The three main pigs, which include Snowball, Napoleon... the other one. It's because that's all it says. Which includes Snowball and Napoleon. Develop a complete system of thought elaborated from the speech by Old Major, a system which was met with doubt and apathy from the other animals. This system is called animalism and is explained to the lower animals at a series of secret meetings. Communism is a complete system, like Islam and National Socialism. It's totalitarian. It's only after animalism has been elaborated and the animals indoctrinated that the revolution occurs. After the revolution, the humans flee and the animals take over the farmhouse. The animals pass a unanimous resolution that no animal must ever live in the farmhouse. The aspiration of the animals was that Animal Farm should become a republic. Once the pig Napoleon had removed his rival pig Snowball, Animal Farm is declared to be a republic, where Napoleon is the only candidate for the role of president. The pig's managerial elite summarize animalism in 7 commandments, unalterable laws which were to apply to all animals for all time. The principles being written up on the wall, the 7th commandment is all animals are equal. The working of teachings and organizing the others fell naturally upon the pigs, who are generally recognized as being the cleverest of animals. And of these clever pigs, Squealer is the deceitful propagandist. The pigs did not actually work, but directed and supervised the others. With their superior knowledge, it was natural they should assume leadership. Immediately after the 7 commandments are inscribed onto the wall, the cows are milked, and the pig, Napoleon, tells the animals to forget the milk and to get to work. When the animals return from their work, the milk is gone. Sometime later, it is discovered that the milk was going into the food for the pigs, the managerial class. Bear in mind here just how quickly the revolution immediately gave way to the establishment of a managerial elite. The documentation, the plans and data, produced by the managerial class is kept hidden from the majority of the animals. The pigs, as the managerial class, control the debates and the voting, just as they did in the Soviet Union, and just as they do in liberal democracies. Perhaps you won't see this until you read more of our book. This book. Committees are created and organized by the pig Snowball. Later on, the managerial elite of pigs make all the policy decisions, which are then agreed by the majority vote. As the years go by and the dictatorial stroke number 2, as years go by and the dictatorial regime worsens, The majority of the animals are cold and hungry, living on increasingly reduced rations. In the UK, the first thing the socialist government did when they came to power in 2024 was to rob the pensioners, who have some of the lowest state pensions in the OECD statistics of winter fuel payments. When inflation and energy prices have escalated hugely because of the war in Ukraine, provoked by USA, UK, and the EU, full stop. But the pigs seemed comfortable enough, and in fact were putting on weight. The Stalinist pig Napoleon takes away the young dogs to brainwash them. Sometime later, Snowball Trotsky is ousted and Napoleon Stalin announces there will be no more voting by the animals. In future decisions would be made in a private meeting of the managerial class, the meeting controlled by Napoleon. They would meet in private and then just inform the animals of the decisions of the managerial class. The animals are outraged to hear that in future they would have no say, but they are silenced by the ferocity of the now adult attack dogs, the police, trained by Napoleon and then by the bleating sheep. The sheep broke out into a tremendous bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, which went on for nearly a quarter of an hour and put an end to any chance of discussion. The sheep may as well have been bleating about the threat of the far right, or Islam is peace, after some more youngsters are slaughtered by a follower of Muhammad, Axel Watakabana. To silence the dissent on the farm, the propagandist Squealer goes around to calm the animals, telling them that Napoleon Stalin's using dictatorial power is a public service by him, and anyway the majority of animals can't be trusted to make the right decision. Or right decisions, sorry. We can see in our day how the elite claim their powerful positions are public service, and they regard the rest of us as too stupid to make decisions. Just as the state propagandist BBC claims it works for the public interest, under fascism, the corporate system claims to channel the spirit of public. So democratic control is not necessary. But by this stage of the egalitarian revolution, the pigs of the managerial elite, their pig propagandists, and their god dogs have silenced the farmed animals. Bear with me. They had to come a time when no one dared speak his mind, when the fierce, growling dogs roamed everywhere, and when you had to watch your comrades torn to pieces after confessing to shocking crimes. Eventually, the Stalinist pig at the top rarely appears in public. The doors of the control centre, the farmhouse, are all guarded by his dogs. This world, that was supposedly based on equality, comes to have a 2-tier system with different rules for the managerial elite and for the farmed animals. It was laid down as a rule that when a pig and any other animal met on the path, the other animal must stand aside. The same 2-tier system is found in Islam, where we kafar, unbelievers, are treated as second-class citizens under Islam, and is increasingly familiar to the indigenous people of Britain. The pigs in charge of the farm start to carry whips, which did not seem strange to the animals. The animals had been slowly taken along graduated steps by the managerial elite over a prolonged period of time. This should be a warning about where liberal democracies are heading. We will show later, chapter 3.3 and 5.4, that since the time of Karl Marx, the Fabian socialists, who controlled the politics of Britain, have wanted to bring about a totalitarian communist state, but by incremental means, so that the public would not realize what was happening as the state got increasingly powerful and more freedom was taken from us. The 7 commandments are eventually replaced with just one rule. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. In the state, where the managerial elite control the minds of its farmed animals, the contradictory logic seems to make sense. We see this in the past decades, when after every Islamic terrorist attack with Muslims copying the actions of the founder of Islam, the elite come out lying to the public, saying that Islam is a religion of peace. Under the increasingly anti-democratic elitist regime on the farm, the animals work like slaves, yet the farmed animals keep thinking they are free. Orwell would in 1984 name this doublethink. They are unable to see that their supposedly free behavior is actually compelled by punishment for non-compliance. In the Republic of Animals, this extra work was strictly voluntary, but any animal who absented himself from it would have his rations reduced by half. The narrative shows that the animals are cold and hungry, their rations drastically reduced. But the starving animals comfort themselves with the idea that things must have been even worse in the past, when the managerial elite were humans rather than pigs. At the end of Orwell's fairy story, human farmers visit the farm and they see the subjugated animals working for the managerial elite of pigs. Some of the animals go to the farmhouse to watch through the window what is going on inside. The humans and the pigs are getting drunk and playing cards, going against the earlier commandments. One of the human farmers congratulates the pigs for a discipline and an orderliness which should be an example to all farmers everywhere. The lower animals on Animal Farm did more work and received less food than any animals in the country. The human farmer compares these lower animals to the human lower classes. The last line of the book is, the animals outside look at the pigs and the humans, and they cannot distinguish which is which. The managerial elite are all the same, whether they are pigs or humans. Any differences between them are superficial. Whether the elite are humans or pigs, conservatives or communists, the result is always the same. They rule over the masses, just as happened in modern liberal democracies. We have the option of electing new governments in the UK, but it's absolutely exceptional for any government to repeal the laws of a previous government. A government the opposition parties pretend to hate and to oppose. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. If the parties really opposed each other, then an incoming government would repeal lots of laws by its hated opponent. It's all a confidence trick, an illusion of choice to keep us compliant. The top politicians of each party in Britain are all members of the Privy Council, and the Cabinet is only a subcommittee of the Privy Council. The Cabinet of the United Kingdom is the executive committee of the Privy Council and the senior decision-making body of British government. One of the ways the managerial elite control the farmed animals is by creating fictional enemies and by rewriting history. This happens in our time, with anyone who challenges the elite's rule over the masses being branded as far-right or as racist. Snowball Trotsky gets written out the stories of the earlier battles to establish and further the Republic of Animals. When the windmill, which was originally proposed by Snowball, collapses in a storm, Snowball is blamed as the saboteur, even though he'd been long ago chased out of the farm. The spectre of Snowball causing sabotage is used to explain many problems. Eventually, chief propagandist Squealer says that Snowball wasn't just dangerous because he was vain and ambitious, but he had been in cahoots with the owner of the farm all along. Supposedly, secret documents were found by the pigs showing that Snowball was an agent from the beginning. When the wheat crop ends, being full of weeds, Snowball is blamed for sabotage. The animals have also learned that Snowball had never, as many of them had believed, hitherto, another word I'm not used to, but I suppose it's good practice. Anyway, received the Order of Animal Hero First Class. Squealer was soon able to convince them that memories had been at fault. The propagandists of the managerial elite are able to gaslight the farmed animals, making them doubt their own memories and perceptions. Snowball becomes so demonized that the animals are unable to remember or to see clearly. We will show later that whilst the political parties of liberal democracies supposedly hate the socialism of Mussolini, Mosley, and Hitler, the liberal democracies have implemented virtually all the same policies. See chapter 3.3 and 5.4. But all racial hatred is directed against the indigenous people. To disguise that this was so, the elite in these liberal democracies had to turn into monsters. The fascists they copied so that no one would look at the details. And the vast majority of the population would then fail to see the similarities. Of course, people like Mussolini and Hitler were monsters, but so is the tyrannical elite in Britain who have pursued fascistic and genocidal policies for decades. After Napoleon Stalin becomes president, New secret documents are supposedly found that showed Snowball Trotsky wasn't just the agent of the farm's owner, but was actually the leader of the humans who attacked the farm. With the false allegation that Snowball led the human attack, with Snowball proclaiming long live humanity, but the reader should remember that it was Snowball who had planned and led the defense when the farm was attacked by humans. The managerial elite make the farmed animals believe that a hero actually held the views that in reality the hero had opposed. In our day, the propagandists of the managerial elite will mislead the public to think that someone supportive of Jews is actually a Jew hater. As we have seen in recent months with news media reports on Tommy Robertson being brutally attacked by police when he went to report on a protest against anti-Semitism. School children are brainwashed into believing the warlord Muhammad and his followers preach peace when their catechism commands them to kill the unbelievers. Constructing a windmill had been Snowball's idea to make life more comfortable for the animals, so Orwell appears to believe there are exceptions in the managerial class, individuals who are not completely heartless and selfish, but such cases are the exception and not the rule. That bit I added. Napoleon opposed the construction of the windmill. When the majority of the animals looked certain to vote for Snowball's windmill, Napoleon sets up his fierce attack dogs on Snowball. These attack dogs look up to Napoleon the way dogs used to look up at the farmer. And that was what led to Snowball to flee. In our day, anyone who gets in the way of the elite is persecuted or, if necessary, assassinated. See Chapter 3, Sections 7, 8, and 9. Never forget, though, that in the real world, Trotsky, Snowball, advocated terrorism and brutally crushed those who said that Bolshevik revolution had been betrayed. Trotsky's book, The Defense of Terrorism, is still for sale on Amazon, published by the most respectable publishers, yet Amazon bans such books such as Muhammad's Quran, which denounces terrorism. 3 weeks after Snowball's expulsion, Napoleon's position on the windmill is reversed and he supports its construction. The chief propagandist Squealer even says that Snowball stole the original idea from Napoleon. Again, history is rewritten. The managerial elite have no commitment to any principle, not even to the truth. The sole principle is the pursuit of power. After the first windmill is destroyed in a storm, it is rebuilt, but the second windmill is blown up by a farmer, Pilkington, when his men attack Animal Farm. A third and final windmill gets built, but it was never used for the benefit of the subjugated animals, who toiled for years to build it. Instead, it was just used to make money for the managerial elite and their guard dogs. The propagandist of the managerial elite isn't confined just in controlling the farmed animals, but is spread far and wide. Pigeons are sent out to propagate the idea of animal rebellion and the song Beasts of England. When Napoleon is negotiating with the human farmers, he gets pigeons to go spreading their reformulated propaganda. Death to humanity is replaced with death to Frederick. The farmer currently out of favour. Then, when Napoleon switches and sells timber to farmer Frederick, and the pigeons are told to disseminate new propaganda to other farms, death to Pilkington, this anticipates 1984, where the enemy is switched, and the masses are told that they have always been at war with Eastasia. Before World War II, Mussolini and Hitler were much admired in the West. The attitude of politicians in the West towards Russia went from enemy to ally to enemy, back and forth between 1900 and today. People in America and Europe who are opposed to National Socialism are denounced by the elite as Nazis or far right, while the same elite in the West funds National Socialists in Ukraine and even ships Ukrainian National Socialists for military training to Canada, Germany, and France, etc. See Chapter 4.7 below. Of course, the propagandists of the elite pretending to be journalists don't report this to the citizens of the West, but we provide the evidence below. The managerial elite in the Republic of Animals go against another of their founding principles when they trade with the human world. Squealer, the propagandist, gaslights the animals that no prohibition against trade or talk has ever been made. Are you certain that this is not something that you have dreamed, comrades? The animals were very ready to distrust their own memory of what had taken place. This went on during the COVID lockdowns, where people didn't notice the elite switching narratives from masks don't work to wear a mask or you're a criminal. No sooner have the managerial elite got away with one deception, they undertake another greater deception. The pigs suddenly moved into the farmhouse and took up residence there. They are also slept in beds. The managerial elite will readily abandon another of the Republic's explicit principles. When the animals looked up the commandments, they saw the fourth commandment now said, no animal should sleep in a bed with sheets. The principles are slowly amended and eroded so that almost imperceptibly the farmed animals cannot see how they have been manipulated. The managerial elite know they need to slowly betray principle after principle, with the busy, uninformed animals left with no solid ground on which to stand. After the terror of the executions, the oppressed animals go to check the commandments and find they have been changed. No animal shall kill any other animal without cause. When it comes to the elite altering the rule against drinking alcohol, it's almost insignificant compared to the other changes. No animal shall drink alcohol to excess. It's not that dissimilar to the Fabian principle of surreptitiously converting the UK into a communist state. The Fabians claimed to believe in equality, but in reality promoted eugenics and were prepared to ignore genocide. It's only the farmed animals who were deceived by the managerial elite. The pigs set about deceiving the outside world about the state of productivity on the farm. He, the human, was deceived and continued to report to the outside world that there was no food shortage on Animal Farm. Later, Napoleon placed farmers off against each other when the pig managerial elite engaged in trade with the human managerial elite. The human buys goods from Animal Farm using fake banknotes. Thus, the managerial elites are often deceiving one another. Inside the Republic of Animals, while the subjugated animals continually experience hunger, every week the propagandists read to them the list of stroke number 4, list of statistics claiming that the production of every class of foodstuff had increased by 200% to 500%. But they could no longer remember very clearly what conditions had been like before the rebellion. The managerial elite used twisted statistics and reports to make the farmed animals doubt their own perceptions and to forget how things had been before, to forget what they had personally lived through. This happens in our time with the idea of the welfare state, inflation, and the cost of living. The meaning of the gold standard, the global financial crisis of 2006 onwards, it has never gone away. See chapter 4 below. Unnecessarily complicated statistics and economics are just two ways in which the managerial elite can gaslight the farmed animals. Other forms of distraction include entertainment, fake political processes, rituals, etc., etc. There were more songs, more speeches, more processions. Napoleon had commanded that once a week there should be spontaneous demonstration to celebrate the struggles and triumphs of Animal Farm. The animals enjoyed these demonstrations. They found it comforting to be reminded that they were their own masters. They were able to forget that their bellies were empty. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd be like, where the fuck is my McDonald's? Anyway, such things allowed the farmed animals to focus on the things the managerial elite want them to see. The farmed animals can be flattered that they were free, whilst in reality they are enslaved. The farmed animals feel so powerless that they prefer comforting lies to uncomfortable truths. Squealer the propaganda says only stupid animals would believe that their beloved leader would betray a loyal and hard-working horse, such as Boxer, Boxer would have the old horse killed and boiled down to make glue. The propagandists gaslight their credulous animals that the van emblazoned with the details of the horse butcher had in the recent past had just been the property of the knacker and had been bought by the veterinary surgeon treating Boxer, who had not yet painted the old name out. The animals were enormously relieved to hear this. Again, the animals prefer comforting lies. The animals never gave up hope. They were still the only farm in England owned and operated by animals. Just as in our day, where people have virtually no input in the political process. Yet many people bleat that we are free people who live in a liberal democracy. Soon after the original revolution, I went to sleep. No, soon after the original revolution, Stonewall Trotsky had distilled all of animalism down to a single principle: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. And this preeminent commandment was inscribed above the 7 commandments. The sheep used to bleat this maxim for hours on end, but by the end of the book, the pigs start walking on their hind legs, and at this moment, as though a signal, all the sheep burst out into tremendous bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs better. It went on for 5 minutes without stopping. And that, I think, is where I'm going to stop. So, we'll continue page 61 onwards. And the next one, I'm not sure when that's going to be, probably Saturday like it normally is, but as you can see, I have been yawning quite a lot. Unfortunately, that's mainly because the tooth has caused me to lose a substantial amount of sleep. Nothing quite says screw you like trying to go to sleep and then being woken up 3.5 hours by agonizing tooth pain. But that's just the way the world works, I guess. But in the meantime, guys, I wish you all a good morning, afternoon, or evening. And be sure to keep an eye and an ear out for my other videos. Because after all, we are at war at the moment with Keir the traitor Starmer, who wants to completely shaft us left, right and centre. Taking away the fuel payments, funding wars and all that shit. So, we've got to stay on our toes. Because you never know what Keir the traitor Starmer may be cooking up next.